La mujer que estás viendo en pantalla se llama Chelle y ella perdió la vida en un aparatoso accidente conduciendo bajo la lluvia. Ella comenta que vivió el proceso cuando la ambulancia la llevó al hospital y dice haber visto presencias oscuras merodeando la zona. Unas escaleras extrañas, luces, unas puertas, demonios y el mismísimo infierno. Pero dejemos que ella nos cuente a detalle lo que vio en el momento de dejar esta vida y pasar a la siguiente fase, antes de revivir a la vida como la conocemos.
It was kind of raining and sleeting, not really nothing real bad. It was March the 3rd of 2002. This happened in Kentucky, in Louisville. Anyway, I started driving home, and when I did, my car hydroplaned. And when it hydroplaned, I started spinning. I seen a black mass come in through my window and come into my head and knock me slick out. It was a demon. Now I know what it was. I hit a tree 3 times. I would hit the tree and bounce off. I could feel myself. I was like out, but I could feel my body in the car. I would hit the tree and bounce off, hit the tree and bounce off 3 times. Each time it was ejecting me from the car, and my face was in the tree. It tore off my nose, my lips, shattered all the bone in my face. My face is nothing but metal from here on down. I had scars all over me, scars above my eye. They did a good job at putting me back. They had to use a modeling picture to put me back together. Well, I kept dying on them. I kept losing blood and died and died. Well, I went in and I died the 17th time. My mother's pastor was in the room with me and held my hand during all surgeries. I heard him screaming to the doctors before I went out, before I died the 17th time. I said, she's going to live. And I was under medication and all. I could hear this. I don't know if I was partly out of my body or if I came out. If I had already died and I was hearing him, is what I think it was. But I heard him saying, I said to keep working. The Lord told me she's going to live. She's not going to die. Keep working. The doctors were throwing their clipboards in the floor and taking their hats off and throwing them, their scrub hats, and saying they worked so hard on me and I was a beautiful girl and they were so sorry they couldn't do no more for me. I come up out of my body and I started floating. I was floating over my body. I felt no pain, no nothing. I was looking down at myself. And I was thinking, what are they, crying about? What, my mom's pastor is here, and why is he crying? He was over top of me, and I could see he did have some blood on his clothes, like laying where he was laying over top of me. I could see some blood on his shirt. He had on a white shirt. I was like, oh my gosh, who is that? I didn't recognize it was me because my face was so mangled in the bandages, and I was on life support. My lungs had collapsed. I had a trach, feeding tube, colostomy bag for 3 years. I was sent home to die. Anyway, I come up out of my body and I started noticing their scrub hats and then putting them back on their heads, the ones that had threw them down, for slamming their hats on the floor, taking them off their head and just like throwing them, like, because they worked so hard on me and they were, just in disbelief that they kept bringing me back. And this time I just died. I was dead for I think 27 minutes it was on my paper. I have proof of all this. Anyway, I started noticing on their caps, like bullfrogs, Harley Davidsons, and some of them had graffiti of God, godly things on their cap, and crosses, and Jesus saves, things like that, And I thought, those are neat caps. I paid great attention to their caps. Well, I started floating around. The lights started blinking off in the room, and they kind of looked around. They blinked on about 3 times. They come back on, and I just kind of looked at them all, and just thinking, wow, that must be me laying there. But how can I be out of my body? Well, when I started thinking that, I started drifting into a light. It was a bright light. And then I started going into a gray light, and it started getting darker. And I didn't feel my body moving. It felt like the light was moving, like I was traveling in the light. And it started getting grayer and darker and darker and darker until I got pitch black and I couldn't see. Wherever I was going, I finally landed like on my feet. I could feel myself on solid ground. And I could feel my body, but I didn't feel no pain. It was like I was alive. I was alive. I looked around in this place, and I looked straight ahead. There was an iron black wrought iron gate with a gigantic keyhole where an old key would go into it, but there were no keys. And I looked through the wrought iron gates. There was a spiral staircase that went up, and it said, the sign up above, in through them iron gates and black wrought iron gates, said, welcome to the gates of hell.
Antes de continuar con su experiencia, cabe aclarar que algunas partes de lo que dice parecieran estar mal traducidas o un tanto ilógicas, pero ella se ha expresado de esa forma. Hay partes del video donde confunde un poco el cómo se expresa, pero sigamos escuchando su historia.
In blood-curdling letters, like in a lithography kind of, but it looked like they were bleeding down the way they were written. I looked up to this spiral staircase. I was outside of the gate. A force started sucking me through the gate, and I was pulling myself back with my hands up in the air like I didn't want to go. I was trying to fight this force. It sucked me through the gate. I looked down at my feet, and I could see great big pits. I could smell decaying flesh and bodies and death all around me. The most pungent smells I ever smelled in my life. I looked down at the ground, and these demons, what I know now are demons, these scaly reptile-looking beings with long tails with pointed razors on the end of their tails and all the way down. Their eyes were slanted upward like this in a point, and they were blood red, far red, and their ears were at points that stuck straight up, and they had scales all over their bodies, and they kept popping up, and as this force was sucking me through the wrought iron gate, their tails were wrapping around my legs and cutting my legs. I could feel the pain. It sucked me up to this spiraling staircase, and I looked, and there were doors, like big metal doors, and the walls, there were no walls. It was just a dark gray matter. I get up to the first door, and it opens, and I heard wailing and gnashing of teeth. I heard people crying, and the door opens a little wider, and it shuts in my face, like, am I going to do it? Will I do it? That kind of thing, like playing with me. Well, it starts sucking me up to the second door, and it opens up the same way as the first door did. I seen 3 doors there, but the spiral staircase kept going up. I believe the reason why I seen the 3 doors was for my sins, the 3rd level of hell I was going to. I come to the second door, and it did the same thing, and I heard the same thing. I get up to the 3rd door, and it slams. It opens up and slams. I heard the same thing of the wailing and crying and save me and help me. And, I didn't know nobody's voice, but I heard people. And I was so scared. I couldn't think to pray. I couldn't do nothing. And then I started thinking, God, why am I here? Why? Please help me. I was like saying, help me in my mind. I couldn't speak. I could only think it in my mind. All of a sudden, at that 3rd door, I flew off that step. I didn't go back down the spiral staircase, like walk down or anything. I started going back into a light. This white the light was, well, it was dark. It was still dark. It was real black, and then it starts getting grayer, lighter gray, and then I go back into this bright white light. And I come back into my body, and when I did, it felt like a 10-ton house landed on me. It was the worst pain I ever felt in my life. The worst pain.
Chelle Smithy termina su historia de esta forma, haciéndonos pensar cuando menos sobre qué es lo que sigue después de dejar esta vida. El reencontrarse con familiares y personas que partieron hace un tiempo, en un cielo o en un infierno, quedando esta como una anécdota más de personas que dejaron este plano por unos minutos y volvieron para contar lo que vieron. ¿Crees que haya vida después de irnos? ¿Has escuchado alguna otra historia similar a esta? Me encantaría leer sus respuestas. Agradecería que si el video te distrajo un rato de tus problemas, me dejes un comentario, dejes un like y te suscribas para que Coppel no proceda a embargarme. Sin más, nos vemos pronto en un nuevo video.